Good evening, my name is Bruce Montgomery and thank you for joining me on this edition of Technology Access Television. Well, you know, business and technology sometimes mix, but sometimes don't mix. All of us who have a background in IT, technology, telecommunications, software, hardware, sometimes people come out of that experience and stay in their silos and oftentimes don't speak the kind of communication that's needed to speak collaboratively around strategy and business and goals and customers and services. So how did this schism come to the world of IT and the world of senior leadership? And how do we bring it back together so that both CEOs and CIOs can do what they need to do to support the vision of successful enterprises and successful delivery of products and services? My guest today is someone who has seen this from the inside out. And after a phenomenal career in working for one of the best and brightest companies in the world of packaged goods and global business activity, has come to provide some additional insights to those who are still in the trenches, be they CEOs and maybe they're uncomfortable, or maybe they're CIOs and they need to get comfortable. My guest today is Jose Ignacio, the author of a new book, The Uncomfortable CEO. And he's going to talk about his experience from being a CIO, but one who knows how to speak the language that CEOs want to hear. Jose, thank you for joining me.
Well, thank you very much for the invite, Bruce. I'm really delighted to be here.
Tell me about this topic, the uncomfortable CEO. What makes CEOs uncomfortable?
Well, first of all, let's see the opposite. If you happen to be comfortable, nothing gets done in your company because you like the status quo.
Okay.
And conversely, if you want to be a successful CEO leader, you have to be uncomfortable. You need to look for new opportunities, talk to the clients, talk to the consumers, talk to the marketplace, and then you have to drive results. You need to face reality, and at the end of the day, you should never settle down. So that will be kind of the 4 attributes for an uncomfortable CEO.
All right.
Now, if you just move forward, the situation that happens today in the IT industry is the following. So whenever you hear what's going on with IT, first of all, you need to know that more than half of the total capital investment goes into IT, which is going to be great. I mean, it's a kudos. We're investing a hell of a lot of money into IT capabilities.
And you know, we hear that all the time, but in fact, I just looked at the markets today, and JP Morgan missed their earnings projections for the first time under the tenure of the famed CEO Jamie Dimon. And what companies have spent more on IT than financial services, but then they just blew it.
Yeah.
This IT didn't come up with red lights to tell them that they were going over a cliff. Is that some of symbology of the schism between IT spending and allowing that to really support decision making in ways that keep people from not going over the cliff?
Yeah, absolutely. For instance, here's the situation. Talk to any CEO and say, man, how much money are you investing in IT? And they will give you a number, where it's 5 million, 5 billion, 50 cents. I say, fine. But then the second question will be, can you tell me what is the value you are generating out of this investment? And unfortunately, most of them will say, I don't even know. I have no idea. And this is a fundamental issue I'm trying to fix, at least in my book. So it's okay to invest money on IT, but it is not okay to not knowing what is going to be the value.
Now, isn't it up to the people, because I'd imagine that those budgets are coming from the IT teams and staffs themselves.
Yeah.
So they're hearing from the different populations they are to serve, and then they come back and say, well, if we're going to do this, we're going to do that. Here's how much it's going to cost us. And then people say, well, hey, they're the experts. They ought to know. But then do they get into the question of ROI and value and contribution to the overall company's reason for being in business.
Well, unfortunately, they don't get into those discussions. So it's another example. If you want to run it with a CIO, so ask him or her, what is the total cost of the portfolio? And they will tell you, in my company, we're investing $5 million with 25 cents. So they know by definition the total cost of their investment. I say, okay, good. But can you tell me what's going to be the value you will generate with this money? And they say, value. Well, Jose Ignacio, value, it's a very interesting question, but I don't know. And this is the problem. I say, how come you don't know what's the value? For let's look at different model. If you happen to be in sales, there is a supreme rule of sales. So you should never talk about the cost without explaining the value. And if you don't explain the value, anything that you are doing in your life is going to be too expensive. Whereas $1 million, $1, or even 20 cents. So you need to correlate the cost with the value. Unfortunately, in our industry, we were never trained to use the value discussion effectively.
Now did you spent a number of years in a well-renowned enterprise company.
Yeah.
And so you saw this firsthand. In fact, your company, if I don't know if it's okay for me to mention P&G, but
you can go.
Okay, but P&G is the epitome of marketing.
Yes.
The epitome of efficiency, the epitome of branding and what they do. Did the great marketers, because I'd imagine that the CEOs of P&G came from marketing and up the ranks to be the CEO because they designed products and these products were successful and bought brand and merged brands into portfolio. What was the value proposition that was given to IT to support this great marketing machine?
Well, there were multiple value propositions, but one of the value propositions will be go to market, the speed to market. For instance, there is a history. For instance, P&G 7 years ago acquired Gillette. And whenever you look at these larger acquisitions, the market becomes very uneasy because although it's good to combine forces, but it will distract the core competencies of the company who is being acquired. So in the case of Latin America, for instance, we managed the acquisition in just 6 months. And it doesn't, I mean, it was
somebody's systems, you have to decide, am I going to use this systems or that system? I can't use both.
Yes, absolutely. We make a decision and say, we will acquire the entire Gillette work processes into P&G systems. But just to give you an idea, the scale of the effort, so we're talking about 47 legal entities, 15 markets, 10,000 employees, 15 plants, and everything was done in just 6 months. So it was really phenomenal. Now, what is the value? Well, the value will be kind of the wellness of the organization, because after the acquisition is done, you go back to your core competency, which is selling and manufacturing best-in-class products. So if you look at the IT enabling capability, it really makes it happen so quickly that the company will never get too distracted. On the other side, I have seen examples where the companies manage an acquisition that lasted 10 years. And if you look at an acquisition that will last 10 years, it's kind of a never-ending discussion. So that will destroy the equity or the well-being of the employees.
So then how does the value proposition get pushed up the ranks and get accepted by, because I could see a CEO saying, hey, I don't have any problem asking the value question. Can he get the right answer from people? Are IT people trained to give him what the value will be? Or because sometimes I see IT being at odds, even to the extent where when you look at, let's say, an application like Salesforce.com, when somebody gets the idea that could help them, the IT people may have nothing to do with the implementation of that.
Yes.
That's being run out of a marketing branch or a sales branch. And so people have gone to use the cloud to pick off these point solutions, and IT is left holding the bag, just running SAP. And people say, well, just keep that working. We'll handle all the rest of this stuff. So IT kind of is out of the value conversation.
Yeah, and honestly, this really drives me crazy because IT should really lead the discussion. So we should be able, the IT professional should be able to really articulate the value and really propose a sustainable, scalable approach to do better capabilities in the company. But in many cases, so it's kind of a convoluted process. So if you just slice and dice the problem, there will be multiple reasons why IT doesn't play the proper role that they should be doing. But the fundamental issue that we need to fix, or that's kind of my hypothesis, the fundamental issue is if you have a CIO, he or she needs to explain you the value. If you just fix that equation, things will really get back in order, because then IT will really focus on the cost and as well as the value, and they will drive the adoption of the new technologies. But I think that fixing what is broken today is we have to start with the value discussion. And secondly, whenever you have the value discussion in the right place, you may decide to invest far more money, because the value, there is going to be a payout. And in many cases, you say, no, we shouldn't do it because the value that it will render is lower than what I can expect. So that will be kind of the entry level to discussion. The second one is we also have to focus on the adoption. And adoption is different than implementation. So you can implement a system that nobody uses. Then what is the value? For instance, I have an interesting discussion with one of my clients. I say, guys, as you go ahead with SAP implementation, you have to be accountable to drive adoption. I said, no, we are not going to do it. I said, you have to do it. If you don't do it, who's going to do it? And if nobody does it, then I will question what is the value of doing an SAP implementation. So it's kind of retraining the IT professionals for them to go beyond the technology work to really work on the work processes and understanding the people's
listening to you talk, it makes me think of so many revolutions that we've seen in the technology space. We've seen first we had the big systems and the central systems, and then we went to the departmental systems and mid-range systems. Then we went all the way to personal computing. And part of the way that these waves were brought in is because they came in with this range of skill sets. So what you're talking about is change management. You're talking about really being sensitive to more things than just the code, more things than the box. Taken to this thing, user experience, usability. And so things that weren't part of the IT lexicon must be part of the IT lexicon if we're interested in getting to where real innovation takes place. And so when we look now at these tablets and how they've been a phenomenon, and then some companies are thinking, should we embrace mobile? And other companies are saying, hey, this is mobile first. This needs to be my lead solution. How could you be a financial institution today and not have, the ability for consumers to interact with their money from the device of their choice?
Absolutely.
But you would have, if you were just thinking about IT, you might have missed that because you were saying, well, those are security risk and we don't make them and we don't control them. You have to just think very differently. So my point is, can, in this value conversation, teams that appreciate the big value story are inclusive of business leadership, customer leadership, product leadership, and together they can envision a solution, not with IT telling them what they need, but they sit down and hack these out. Now, is that practical for that to happen?
Actually, it's very practical. In my book, for instance, I have a full chapter describing the new job description of the CIO. And basically, I'm talking about the CIO needs to be an excellent communicator. He or she needs to explain things very clearly. So it's communications, resiliency, collaboration, and then towards the end of my description, I say, by the way, this individual also needs to know technology. But there is a full focus on driving dialogue between the IT community with the rest of the constituencies in the company. So
as a consultant, sometimes consultants are viewed as theorists. That you want to talk at the high 10,000 foot level, but don't want to get your hands dirty. Is that true, or do you want assignments? Do you want people to say, hey, this division is in going to hell in a handbasket. Are you willing to come in here and help us turn it around?
Yes, absolutely. Actually, my hands really gets very dirty often. Now, I do believe that it's okay to have the idea, but if you just provide the idea, nothing will happen. So I will be the consultant who really helps you understand what is the issue and then help you make it happen. It's kind of a unique boutique consulting group that I'm running.
And with you being a single individual, but having this background in complex transitions, the project that you mentioned with Gillette and P&G and Latin, it's a huge project, a giant project to be cranked out in a crazy amount of time. I mean, 6 months, something had to blow up. But that means you have to have an awesome amount of leadership and coordination skills. So if somebody says, well, what can this one guy do with this big Titanic organization? What do you tell them? It's not just me, or I'm gonna facilitate how this change flows through your organization. Or I tell you what, we're just gonna start with this piece, and if we can get this piece working, think what could happen with the rest of the organization.
Yeah, and again, it certainly happens the way you mentioned. So first of all, I don't want to fix all problems in the company, but I say, if we just have a good discussion about the value we are creating in this company, that will kind of providing some guidance of what needs to be done. For instance, I don't think that all the organizations in IT needs to be identical. So there will be different value capabilities. But if you want IT to really transform the business model, you need to have different expectations from that organization and different skill sets and different value propositions as well. So I want to spend some time understanding what are you expecting from the IT organization. Once we have this common understanding, then we will dissect the problem, and I will provide you some guidance approach on what needs to be done differently.
Now, you've been doing a lot of speaking and traveling and looking at enterprises, not only here in the United States, but in Latin America, in Europe, in Asia. When it comes to adjusting companies to the value paradigm, are you seeing a proclivity domestically for companies to be, or are you seeing different, this could have innovation and this type of thought process could take hold anywhere?
Yes, actually, the sad part of this equation is that it happens throughout the world. So it happens not only in the US, not only in Chicago. It doesn't happen only with P&G. It happens with the entire industry. So my fundamental hypothesis is the following. Whenever we go to the university and learn the computer science technologies, nobody told us that we also need to deal with humans. So we really learned that we need to deal with computers. And I think that this is a missing opportunity, because at the end of the day, you have to establish dialogue with humans so that they will understand your capabilities. So this is the reason why I spend so much time talking and lecturing at the universities. I say, guys, it is okay that you learn the technologies. And obviously, learning IT will require kind of an extra effort, because the technology changes over and over. But besides that, you also need to understand that you are inserted into a society, and you need to communicate with people and explain them value, and so on and so forth. So my ideal dream will be that if we the next generation of IT professionals will be far more balanced. It's not only IT professionals, that's it. So they need to be well-rounded humans who happen to know technology as well.
I was talking to a friend of mine who was in a senior IT position in New York, and he told me that his favorite new hires were not actually IT undergrads or grads, that he preferred to hire liberal arts majors. And I said, well, how is that? He said, look, for the technology they need, I can teach them that. But the thinking, the critical thinking, the range of approaches, the creativity, this humanness comes from someone who a liberal arts person who can write, who can speak, who can read, who can acquire new knowledge.
Yeah.
And so, because the tools we're using today, we might not use those tools tomorrow. We may have a package today, we may go open source tomorrow. So somebody's got to be able to pick that up fairly quickly, just like they pick up a new novel and read it and get a feel for what it is. But if people are just heads down, I'm a C++ developer, I'm an Oracle DBA, I'm a Cisco guy. That doesn't help you when you need this interaction with humans and really trying to ferret out the value strategy that's going to make the company competitive in the marketplace.
And actually, for instance, this is an interesting story. So my first job in my life was, so I graduated from the university and I had a master in artificial intelligence. So really into the technology I was. But my first job was becoming a sales rep selling laundry detergent in Mexico, in grocery stores. So I said, man, this is gonna be weird. How come I am a sales rep? But the truth of the matter, I learned that if you don't sell your services or your products will never be consumed. And that experience can easily be translated into the IT community. We have brilliant people creating brilliant solutions, but those solutions are really toasted because people don't even articulate the real value of those solutions in the eyes of their clients.
It used to be, at least in some companies, in order for people to ascend the ranks of the organization, they would have to rotate in different experiences so that they would know production, they would know inventory, they would know back office and front office, so then when they got hired, they could appreciate that. And now there seems to be quite a lot of dysfunction in organizations because people really don't have an appreciation for customer service. How could so many American companies outsource customer service and then not think that when the client gets a phone call and they say, this guy, I'm in Kansas City, he doesn't even know where Kansas City is. He's got to look it up on a map. So we have to reel some of this stuff back in. So The Uncomfortable CEO is your book. And your book is out now, and what's been the response you've been getting since your book?
Well, it has been excellent. So basically, for instance, I can give you some testimonials. So before I published my book, I shared it with 20 CEOs. And they say, Jose Ignacio, I've been running my company for the last 20 years, and this is the first time I have read an IT book which I really understand. Because the book is written in a very business-oriented language, is very easy to understand. So kudos to you. And now I can really understand what are the problems that my IT people are facing. So it's going to be pretty simple to read. For instance, I was in Mexico 3 weeks ago, and I was in an interview, and I said this thing, and I can do it for you. So I said, if you read my book and you do not understand anything, just give me a call and I will buy you lunch. Because the book is really meant to be very transparent, very easy to understand. So I can repeat to your audience. So if someone reads my book and I say, Jose Ignacio, I simply do not understand what you really mean on chapter B.
Call you up.
Call me and I will buy lunch wherever they are. This is a promise.
Okay, so they can go to the uncomfortableceo.com. And what will they see when they go to your website?
Well, they will see kind of the description of the Uncomfortable CEO, and they will see kind of my methodology to fix the problems, and they will see a couple of interviews and some reading materials as well.
And the book, of course, I'm sure is on Amazon. And did you do a Kindle version too?
Actually, the book is either paperback, hardcover, or Kindle version, so you can download anything.
All right. And you're also quite active in the business community and got so many wonderful things going on. So when you're flying around the world, and people call you on your cell phone and say, Jose Ignacio, sit down with me.
Have lunch.
Have lunch.
For free.
You'll do that. I want to thank you so much for coming out and talking about your book, The Uncomfortable CEO. I want to thank you guys that are out there. Maybe you're a CEO or maybe you're a CEO in the development. You need to understand value, and associate yourself with CEO thinking. One day, a CMO, a CIO, a CTO, anybody may end up being a CEO. And according to Jose, they need to be a little uncomfortable if they're going to be successful. Thank you so much for entertaining this conversation. It's been a brilliant conversation with Jose Ignacio. My pleasure. Thank you so much for
Bruce.
joining me.
Thank
And
you.
thank you for being a part of this dialogue and this conversation. I suggest you go to theuncomfortableceo.com and see what Jose Ignacio is speaking of. I think you'll find it to be quite enlightening. My name is Bruce Montgomery, and this has been another edition of Technology Access Television.
Everybody wants to be loved, but can he handle it? Realize love is not a game. Nothing stays the same.